Welcome to the Dave Palmer Show.
Hi, welcome back to the Dave Palmer Show. And with me in this episode, I have a coach, speaker, and facilitator, and author of a new book called Dear Younger Me: Wisdom for Family Enterprise Successors. David Bentall, welcome to the Dave Palmer Show.
Thanks, Dave. Wonderful to be with you today.
Wonderful to be with you as well. Wonderful to be with you as well, David. David, you have a wonderful message to send out there based on your own, well, from what I can see, maybe mistakes, but maybe learning
Mistakes
curves.
Is right. Yeah, mistakes is right. I'm in the remedial class.
I call them learning curves and, opportunities of learning. But whatever you say, but yeah, your book says it all, and I also would like to delve into as you say, wisdom for family enterprise. The fact that your focus, why is it your focus on family enterprise, and what can people get from that? But let's go into your story first. What was your life like as a younger self, and what was your mistakes, if you want to call it that, and how did you learn from it to get where you are now? And then we can talk about the book. Yeah.
Well, Dave, I think that the best and most perhaps interesting way of starting is to say that I have a brother-in-law and 3 other friends who are in the Guinness Book of World Records. And I'm thinking of submitting my name, honestly, to the Guinness Book of World Records, because I say that because I think, Dave, that I'm the only person alive who was one of the central actors in Succession, not the television show, but in Succession in our family business. I was one of the central actors 3 separate times in our same family business, and Succession 3 different ways, all before my 40th birthday. And most people say, like, how can it's not possible. But the first time we tried to do Succession as a family, it was a tragic mess. The second time, it was a wonderful, smooth, successful, harmonious deal. And our third try at Succession resulted in a sale of the business. So it was sort of a bit of a mixed blessing. And so, Dave, as I think about my life and what I've written about in Dear Younger Me, it really, I'm looking at how could I have navigated those 3 separate experiences with Succession differently? What did I do wrong? And there was a lot of things. So that's really what it's about. And just to set the stage one more way, if we think about Succession, Dave, it's really about passing 2 things. It's in a family business. I come from a family business. It's passing the leadership or management from one generation to the next, and it's passing ownership, the shares in the company, from one generation to the next. And our first try, we botched the succession both in management and ownership. The second time we did Succession, we did a successful transition of ownership and management. And then the third time, we ended up doing sort of a combination, ended up keeping the ownership in the business, but failed to do the management succession. So it's a really interesting. So that's what launched me into being an advisor to families in business. Spent 20 years of my career working in our family company. In the last 25 years, I've been advising other families. I guess make enough mistakes, the university will ask you to teach, and you can write books. So I've written 2 books about my experience. So there's a bit about my story at a high level, Dave.
Yeah. Well, let's go through it a little bit more thoroughly, because people would like to hear and be inspired by where you came from to get to where you are now, really, which is what this show is all about. And then they get obviously more of an insight into what your book's about before, obviously, get them motivated to buy it, obviously, and read it. That's what the idea is. Great. But so let's see where did you start in life and what was going on? So you're from Canada. I don't want to make that mistake and say US.
Yeah, well, and you're from the UK. So let's start with that. My grandpa emigrated from England to Canada in 1908.
1808.
1908. Yeah.
1908. Sorry.
1908.
I got to get the wax out my ear.
Yeah. And Granddad took the train across Canada and went. He was a professional engineer, structural engineer.
Right.
And when he came here, he designed as a structural engineer a building that in 1911 was the tallest building in the British Empire. The building still stands in the city of Vancouver. Just had a major renovation. Beautiful 21-story office building in Vancouver. And Granddad built a real estate, construction, and engineering company that at its zenith had 1,500 employees across Western Canada, and he left the ownership of that business to his three boys, my dad and his older brother, and my dad and his younger brother. And so my dad worked in the family business for 50 years, 50, and his brother was his partner for 40 years. My uncle was an owner, but not in the business. And Dave, when I was a young man, my dad came into the den. I was watching television, and he said, "Son, turn off the television, do your homework." I said, "Dad, I'm watching Casper the Friendly Ghost. Leave me alone." And Dad didn't threaten to spank me or take away my allowance. He said, "You can't be president unless you do your homework."
Yeah.
And so from grade 5 on, my dad began to nurture in me this dream that I would one day lead our family company. And I was one of 11 cousins, but I was the only one who ended up working in the family business. And so my dad wanted me to lead the company. I wanted to lead the company. And sadly, my dad and his two brothers had a falling out, and my dad's two brothers, his older brother, his younger brother, added up the shares and went, "We've got majority control. You're out of here." And after my dad's 50th anniversary with the business, they got rid of my dad, they got rid of me, and sold everything. And my dad died with a broken heart, with broken relationships. We lost the business, all the assets, all the family relationships. And so, Dave, it was a horrific nightmare. And for me personally, for my dad, and for our whole family. And so that's how, if you think about my life, I mean, where did it start? It started watching TV, going to be president, and then it ended up with me on the outside at 33. What the heck am I going to do with the rest of my life? So that was a bit of a shock. Hey?
Yeah, of course. Wake up call, I suppose.
Yeah.
Did it motivate you then to do something else, or was you kind of like that? What do I do?
Well,
what was that all
Dave,
about?
I'm not a quitter.
Yeah.
And so when my uncles put the real estate company up for sale through an IPO, through initial public offering, they decided that they would, prior to going public, that they would sell the construction business that had been the first company Granddad had. And so my sisters and I bought the construction business. So that became our second try at succession. We lost the main company, the holding company, the real estate company, property management business. That was all sold and taken public. So my sisters and I made an offer to buy the construction business. And conveniently, it came with its own president. He was 62 years of age, and he was going to retire in 3 years. And so I became a second time, Dave, I became a successor in the same family in our business. And 2 years later, Mr. Myers recommended to the board of directors that I become president. And I had the privilege of being part of the leadership team there for 10 years. We saw the company double in sales. This is back between 1988 and 1998. But even in today's dollars, we grew the company to $300 million a year in annual sales. And we paid back all the debt we had taken on in buying the business, transformed the culture. And if my life ended there, my sisters and I were partners. It went really well. If my life ended there, you'd say, "Okay, David, you had two experiences with family business succession. One was an unmitigated disaster, and the other was a smooth, harmonious, successful transition of ownership. Saw the company grow. You worked with your sisters." So like day and night, Dave, completely different.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's just to have like two experiences like that. That must have obviously you learned from the first one to be more successful at the second one, I guess.
Well, it certainly knocked a few of the rough edges off, Dave.
Yeah.
But at the end of 10 years, we'd paid back all of the debt we had. My life didn't end there. In my early 40s, my brother-in-law came to me and he said, "You're president and CEO of the family business. You own 40% of the company. Why don't you buy your sisters out?" And so I went home and talked to my wife, and I said, "I don't even like construction. The real estate side was what I really wanted to do."
Yeah.
And but I've always believed that so we're taking a look at, is there maybe one way we could make this work? So I made a proposal to my brother-in-law to perhaps bring in a partner and buy the business from him. And he felt the company was worth more than we were offering. And so my sister and my brother-in-law purchased the company from me. And so I thought that'd be the end of my life in our family company. He said, "Why don't you stay on as our president? Keep 10% of the company and stay on." And I remember thinking, I don't think this is going to work. My brother-in-law is a brilliant guy, a great guy, but he and I tended to look at things differently. And so my tenure lasted about 6 months after I sold the business. And so I found myself at age 43 on the outside again. That was a really tough, three strikes you're out. That was it. I was done. And so I go, man, at age 43, who would have thought I have to restart my life completely?
Yeah. Well, also spending 10 years paying debts back rather than thinking profit. You're thinking debt. That must have been quite a kind of weight load on you.
It was a weight load on us, Dave. And just to be fair to our listeners, one of the things in Canada you can do is you can do a tax effective distribution of assets.
Yeah.
And so part of the acquisition price, we were able to receive as a dividend from the major corporations. So my uncles had taken public. So my uncles got some buildings and we got part of the shares in the company. So the debt load was not nearly as crushing as it might have been. So we were thankful. We did have to pay my sister for buying out some of her shares and then my brother for buying. So it was 7 years to pay off all of the debt. But it was thankfully not as challenging as it might have been had it been arm's length debt. But gosh, it was tough to try. Like, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? So I spent a lot of time thinking, what the heck am I going to do? Tough.
Yeah. Wow. So let's see if we can shift on to how the book came about, and what the work you do around actually advising other companies, how that obviously evolved as well. Because I take it you don't have these businesses anymore yourself. You're just consultant. Correct. Is that it now?
Correct. Yeah. And so, Dave, I honestly had no clue, absolutely no clue what I was going to do. So I decided I'd take a year off and take a year's sabbatical. I was getting a paid 1 year paid holiday, being let go by the company. So I'll take that paid holiday so I took up competitive water skiing as a hobby and said I'll write a book about my life experience so far. And
that's not a bad hobby to take, is it?
Yeah, it's been great. And I've been fortunate enough to go to 5 senior world championships.
Oh, wow.
And
that's good.
And to 12 or 13 Canadian national championships.
That's from the age of 43 onwards.
Yeah. So
wow.
So it's been great for me. And that I think helped keep me sane because this was an emotionally punishing journey I'd been through. And so for our listeners, one of the things that really helped me is that I had a passion outside of the business. While I was trying to figure out what to do with the rest of my life, I had a passion outside of work that gave me some stability and something else to pursue. And writing a book was very cathartic. And so my first book was not about our family business experience, but about covenant friendship I got with 2 other men. We committed to each other for life. So having close comrades, close buddies who shared life with me, that helped. Being able to ski helped me. But it also I had a chance to breathe and then take some time. But Dave, how I ended up consulting other families, people kept asking me to talk about our experience. They said, you guys had this amazing family business and you lost it. Like, what happened? People wanted to hear about it. And as someone said earlier this week, blood sells, right? And so there's blood in the water. People wanted to hear what happened to our family. So I spoke about my experience, and I as I'm today trying to be respectful of all the participants in the journey. But it was a tragic experience. So I shared openly about the missteps that we made, and that led to the university asking me to teach at the university about our experience. So I was asked to chair the board of the Business Family Center at the University of British Columbia, set up a center for family business studies. So I started teaching undergrad and MBA classes. And now, I do workshops for legal and accounting and banking professionals. And I've written 2 books about how families can do a better job than we did. So it really became, what did we do wrong that you can learn from as a family? And then my more recent book, what did I do wrong personally, why you should develop emotional intelligence, how that can help. So it was really just an outgrowth of the mess we got into, and people kept saying, can we learn from you so we can do a better job?
Yeah. Well, that's people actually came to you saying that. Did they asking you that? Yeah,
it was fascinating. I found myself About a year after selling the business, I found myself at a black tie dinner in downtown Toronto at the Four Seasons Hotel with 1,000 people. And they said,
Wow.
and the wealthiest business owners in Canada, tell us what happened to you guys. And so I told them what happened, and people said, we'd like you to come and teach our family how to avoid doing that. We'd like you, can you consult our family? And so I actually finally one day, Dave, had to get a website so I didn't have to explain the story all the time. I didn't start with a business and a website. I started people just calling me.
But you could charge them money to keep asking you that. Well, actually, people tell their stories in motivational speeches and dinner after dinner talks and things like
That's
that.
right.
Really.
That's right.
So
that's right.
So that's quite fantastic that you actually had people coming to you, which is good, really.
I didn't want to consult. I didn't want to teach. I didn't want to do it.
Okay. It just
people kept asking
came to you.
Yeah. Dave, I'm a planner by nature, and our listeners might find this interesting. I'm a planner by nature, so I'm always thinking about what's the next thing. With the Super Bowl parties on Sunday, I've already got the balloons for the Super Bowl.
Sunday.
I'm a planner by nature.
Yeah.
But if you sat me in a field for 1,000 years, I never would have figured out that what I should do with my life is become a family enterprise advisor and teacher, professor at the university, and write books. So I never aspired to any of that. My son said, Dad, this is your calling. This is what God wants you to do with your life. So he put it very nobly. He said, Dad, you can take your pain and use that to serve others. So that's what I'm doing.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's great. So tell us then about how the book came about then. So you started looking at how did you pick the title and what is it about? What's the book about?
So in the last 25 years since the businesses were sold, I've been consulting, as you and I were talking, to many families. And I remember I had 2 family meetings, one in one city and one in another. And I went from one, flew to the next. And both of the meetings, Dave, I think I'd prepared very well for them, but they'd both gone badly, like really badly. And I remember being on the plane on the way flying home, licking my wounds a little bit. I'm like, why did those go bad? What did I do wrong? I thought about the first meeting, and I thought, in that first meeting, one member of the family was just very impatient. His dad was 55, he was 25. He wanted his dad to be gone tomorrow, and his dad wanted to stay for another 10 years. And so there was this,
you mean leave the company, obviously.
Yeah. I might as well have wished him dead, but it was really painful, right?
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, that was impatience and then the other meeting, why did that not go very well? And I thought, one of the kids was really hurt by something his dad had done, and he'd not forgiven his dad. And I encouraged the dad to write him a letter of forgiveness, and his dad had done that. But the son was still hanging on to this bitterness towards his dad. And I remember thinking, okay, one son was impatient, one was unforgiving. And I thought, I'm sure glad I wasn't like that. Or was I?
Yeah.
And I began to think, I was impatient. I lacked forgiveness. And I got out a scratched piece of paper on the airplane, and I said, not only that, I lacked humility, I lacked listening skills, I lacked empathy. And pretty soon I had written down 10 ways that I had lacked emotional intelligence, 10 ways I had been unhelpful. And when it got to editing the book, we ended up choosing 9 of them. But I ended up, Dave, writing about the 9 ways I wish I had been different. Hence the title, Dear Younger Me, right?
Yeah.
I wish I had been different. And if I can just illustrate that, I remember having breakfast with my wife, and she and I went through a season of great difficulty in our marriage earlier on. We've been married, thankfully, 44 years now, but as our 10th, it's a long time. As our 10th anniversary,
obviously a much longer time involved in the marriage, but yeah.
But as our 10th anniversary was approaching on the horizon, we were having a lot of trouble. The first 5 years, I was digging a ditch that we fell into, and we were kind of struggling. And I went for lunch with my wife, or breakfast with my wife one morning, and I was talking with her about the struggles I was having with my uncles. And I was looking for some empathy, Dave. And I remember my wife looking at me saying, I think I got the same problem with you that your uncles do. I go, what do you mean by that? And she said, you think you're always right. And I said, what's wrong with that?
Yeah.
That was my honest answer, because I actually thought I was always right. And so the first chapter in my book is how I lacked humility and how that got me into trouble in my marriage and my career, right?
Oh, all right, yeah.
And so you can see, gosh, Dave, I had a lot of things to learn, right? And in terms of empathy, if I could just illustrate that, my uncle worked behind my father, or underneath my father's leadership for over 30 years, 3 decades. And when I joined the family company, my uncle was 55, and I thought he would traditionally, retire at 65. So I thought he'd be retiring in 10. So I met with my dad and my uncle, and I said, I'd like to share with you some ideas about how I can learn to lead the business over the next 10 years. Here are the different jobs I'd be interested in, perhaps being involved in. What do you think about a 10-year career development plan for me? And my uncle said it would have to be at least a 20-year training program. And that was totally reasonable for him to say that, because he'd had to wait 30 years, right?
Yeah.
But as a 23-year-old kid, I had no empathy whatsoever for what he'd been through. And it was only with many years of hindsight, I look back and went, if I'd had just a modicum of empathy for how long he had to wait, I might have been a little more willing to consider his idea of maybe me waiting 20. But I was insistent, no, I can be ready in 10. And my dad was insistent, and that's actually what lit the flame that blew up the bomb that destroyed our family, because I wanted to lead in 10. So there was impatience there, right? There was a lack of empathy. You can see how lack of humility, lack of empathy. So I've written about empathy and humility, curiosity, and these things, how they can make a huge difference in a positive way, because I lack them.
Yeah. No, it's good that people are honest about their mistakes and can actually share it to say, this is what I've learned. This is what I can give you, really. So that's really how it works, I suppose, for a lot of these.
That's how it ought to work, right?
Yeah. No, that's great. So that's really how you came about the title.
Dear Younger Me,
Dear Younger Me, which obviously is quite a good title, really. So it's almost like you're writing a letter in each chapter to yourself, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so the consultancy work came first, because because that was like people just coming up to you, and you weren't even thinking about it, because you didn't even realize you was consulting, really. Almost, it just fell into you, didn't it? Fell into your lap.
Yeah, and I remember being asked to go to a weekend for some families that were going to be getting some training on how to work together in a family business environment. Yeah. And the folks who were hosting it asked me to come, and I said, why would I want to do that? And they said, well, we think you can really help other families.
Yeah.
And I said, well, like, are you offering to pay me? And they said, we can't pay you, but if you're willing to be a facilitator of family discussions, we'll pay for your airfare and hotel. So I thought, well, I'm not doing anything else right now anyway. I don't have a job, so sure, I'll go. But like, I had no interest in doing this, and as you can tell, I've become passionate about helping families as a result.
Yeah, well, that's pretty much your niche, really, isn't it? Without you realizing.
That's right.
And you can, I mean, people do this kind of work forever, don't they? There's people that are, retired, and then they do consultancy work, don't they? Which is pretty much what you've done, really, isn't it? Really, with in your business and doing that, really. So, what? Go on.
I was just going to say, and it is consulting, but we chose the name for our business, and we don't call ourselves Next Step Consultants. We call ourselves Next Step Advisors, because we like to work with families to help them come up with solutions that work for them, rather than as consultants to tell them what they should do.
You're right.
So it's more of a collaborative thing.
Yeah. Consultants tend to be used even for coaching. It's like, oh, I'm a consultant, and lots of other things, really. Or even doctors are called consultants, aren't they? Things like that. So, so there's always a kind of fine line. It's like coaching and mentoring is two different things. Mentoring is like advising as well. So it's all words meaning different things, but almost helping people come to an end goal in the same way, really. So
that's right. Helping them come to a solution rather than telling them what the solution should be.
Exactly. Yeah. Fantastic. So tell people how they can find out more about your consultancy work and the book as well, where they can find that.
Sure. So if they go, my website's easy to, it's just nextstepadvisors.ca. So Next Step Advisors, and we just ADVISORS.ca. We're Canadian. So nextstepadvisors.ca is the website. And people can order a copy of my book there. And speaking of the book, Dave, can I just give folks just a flavor of just one thing about the book?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I am very inspired by a number of people. I don't know if it's those who are looking online can see my bookshelf behind me, and the Walt Disney's biographies there, and many other biographies. People have inspired me, and I've been inspired as I shared with you, Dave, all the mistakes I made lacking these things. Mm-hmm. So I've begun to look at who can I learn from to cultivate these new traits, whether that be patience or empathy or what have you. So Nelson Mandela, for an example, is one of the virtual mentors for me, to help me learn that if he can forgive the people who put him in prison for 27 years, then maybe I can forgive someone who cut me off in traffic or stole my bike when I was a kid, right?
So not as severe, is it, as 27 years for some other bigger case than someone cutting you up in the traffic.
Yeah. And so Benjamin Franklin is the person that I lift up as an example for me in terms of learning humility. And folks who know Ben Franklin, some would know of him as one of the founding fathers in the United States, but also invented electricity and bifocals and started the U.S. Post Office. So this was a highly accomplished guy.
Yeah.
But one of the things that he says in his autobiography is he says, "I decided to deny myself the privilege of ever disagreeing with anyone." It takes a lot of humility to decide to deny yourself the privilege of ever disagreeing with anyone. And Dave, that was so counter to how I grew up. I would always interrupt people to tell them why they were wrong and why I was right.
Yeah, it's very easy to do that.
Yeah, and so just yesterday I had a gentleman who I recommended for the family he's working with. I recommended they set up an owner's council, and I'd recommended that to him a few months ago, and he immediately thought he didn't think that was a suitable approach. And I wrote him a gentle email, and I was trying to channel my Benjamin Franklin, and I said, we talked about this owner's council, and I understand you were hesitant about that. And I didn't say you were wrong, you should do this. I said, I know you were hesitant, but if I could, I'd like to just submit to you that I think there's a couple of reasons why it warrants consideration. Here they are. Just let me know whether you'd be open to talking about it. Notice how that's not disagreeing. That's just offering information. And he got back to me and said, I think that owner's council thing is brilliant. Let's do that. And so I think that Benjamin Franklin's taught me to have more humility. And what Benjamin Franklin says in his autobiography is that he found that when he was more humble, people were much more easily willing to agree with his suggestion. So but there's a think about your marriage. We talked about that. Think about your professional career. Think about your businesses. If we sprinkled a little bit of humility here and there, gosh, it would make life a lot easier for all of us.
Absolutely. Well, that's great. And what message would you share out there with our listeners before you go, David?
Well, I'd love to be in touch. If you mentioned about my book, so if you want to go to my website and order my book, please do that. But just know, if you order it from me, you can get it on Amazon, obviously. But if you wanted to order it from my website, just put your name in the order. There's a spot to do that, and I'd be happy to personally sign the copy. And so I love to do that for folks. So that's one thing. And then the last thing, Dave, is if folks go to my website, a lot of people might be interested in learning patience and humility or forgiveness and these things. And I'm in the remedial class, so you really can't learn a ton from me about how to do these things. You can learn why they're important and what happens if you don't have them. Mm-hmm. But during COVID, with team members on our Next Step Advisors team, we developed a coaching and mentoring program to help folks. And it's all done virtually, all online. So if any of our listeners would like to not only get a copy of my book, but actually go deeper and learn how to cultivate these traits, we offer now a coaching and mentoring program for folks who want to cultivate patience and empathy and these other traits. So be happy to serve anybody who is interested in learning and growing, Dave.
Fantastic. Well, David, it's really been a great pleasure talking to you today on my show, and thanks a lot for coming along and sharing your story and your book and everything else that you do with my audience today.
Dave, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
That's all for this episode. Thanks for listening, and remember, if you want to support what we do, then share, subscribe, and leave a review over on Apple Podcasts. Or head over to my website, davepalmer.com, and click on Rate Show. Well, that's all for now, but I'll see you in the next episode of The Dave Palmer Show.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.